Kel Brook demolishes Amir Khan. The long-term British rivalry is finally over. Is that the end for Amir Khan? And what next for Kel Brook? Dillian Whyte running out of time. Will the contract get signed or not? And there's two previews for two big fights for this weekend's world title boxing action. This is Lights Out. I am Faisal Khan, and this is podcast 48 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast, proudly sponsored by the best law firm in the world, Spartans Law. Delighted to be joined by the MVP of Team Lights Out, Mohsin Gulshir, aka Ronald Jeremy. Ron, how are you, mate?
Very good, thank you. Very good.
It's good to see that you made it in time. I was thinking I'd have to send you the P45 letter through your front door first thing in the morning. But no, pleasure to have you on. Before we get started and before me and Ron have it out of each other on last weekend's boxing actions, we'd just like to remind all the viewers out there, if they can, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button. Follow us on all the social media platforms. Links are below in the description. And yeah, let's get into it, Ron. We caught up on Saturday night after the fight, and you asked me how was the experience. I don't think I've recovered from the actual experience itself. The fight's out of the way. The rivalry is over now. Khan versus Brook is finally done. Just get your thoughts on the build-up to the fight before we talk about the fight itself. What did you make of last week's build-up?
Oh, no, I absolutely enjoyed it. I think both fighters kind of promoted the fight well. You know, the gloves are off episode as well, where there was sheer animosity between the two. Kind of hatred. You know, we saw the press conferences. I don't know. I mean, now reflecting back on it, I don't know how Amir Khan will see that. Will he be cringing at that? Because after all those comments...
Hold on a second. Let's just slow you down here, because I cannot believe what we are seeing beneath us.
Chris Eubank's #1 fanboy.
He is indeed. Asif Khan, welcome back to Lights Out. How are you, mate? Okay, I think he's got a few technical issues, but I'm pretty sure he'll throw himself in. Again. Yes. I mean, just give us a thumbs up when you can hear us, Asif. Okay, maybe not yet, but all right. Okay, Ron. All right, we've just got a few technical issues with Asif's sound. Ron, give us your thoughts on the actual build-up to last weekend's fight. What did you make of it?
Yeah, no, like I was saying, I thoroughly enjoyed the back and forth between the two, trading insults. You know, saying that Kel's going to be asking me to pay rent because I've been living in his mind for so long. I found that hilarious. Then you had the trading of Poppadom chin, which I just, I mean, I didn't take it as personal or really, you know, kind of racial in any sort of way, but Amir Khan, you know, clearly did. Then we had, you know, just, you know, kind of talking about the sparring of 17 years ago when they were both, you know, both young guys. So. Yeah. You know, the build-up was great. It kind of, you know, got everyone riled up. You know, couldn't wait for the fight. So, and did the fight live up to expectations? You bet you did. Yeah, I mean, what do you make of it? You were there live. You were seeing it, you know, in action.
I've got to say, I've attended some fight weeks, but that by far is the best. That's going to take some topping. Phenomenal fight week. Honestly, the build-up was very good. The press conference itself was probably the best moment. The back and forth that they had. When I arrived a bit late to the press conference, and the guy was like, "Yeah, you've got to sit at the back," and I was thinking, "Great." But luckily, when he wasn't looking, I sort of just jumped to the front, put my camera down, and did what I had to do. And the press conference was brilliant. The public workout was good. The weigh-in was good. He had a very hostile atmosphere towards Kel Brook, and then the fight itself, the event, the amount of celebrities that were there. It was a pleasure to be a part of it. And obviously, before we talk about the fight, Asif, what did you make of the build-up to the fight? Because I remember you saying you commented on one of the videos that Sky Sports' build-up to the fight has been second to none. What did you make of the build-up to the fight for Khan and Brook?
Yeah, first of all, hello. Yeah, can you hear me all well? Yeah.
Yep, we can.
Yeah.
Welcome back. It's been a while.
It's been a while. Now the build-up was great.
I just want to say before Asi, we go any further ahead, just to let you know, the contract between yourself and Lights Out. Ron doesn't need to know the full details, but yeah, please carry on.
Number one, baby. No, I think the build-up was great. Sky put a lot of work into the build-up. The fight really didn't need selling, in my opinion. It was already pretty much sold. You know, the numbers don't lie. You know, they sold out in record time. But I think Sky put in a lot of work. You know, I love the behind the ropes that they done. You know, they followed Khan out to where he was in Nebraska, and Kel Brook into future Ventura. Yeah, and it was a really good insight into the work that they were putting in. You can see both fighters putting a lot of work, and I'm sure we'll go on to the fight itself. But I love the build-up. I thought Sky did an excellent job.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Sky since this new journey. A lot of question marks were sort of raised when Eddie Hearn and Matchroom went over to the zone on a full-time basis, and I've got to say Sky have been pretty impressive with their shows they put on, and I thought they were spot on with the actual build up to the fight was good. As Asid mentioned, the behind the ropes, you had Johnny Nelson tactically breaking down the fight. You know, you had Talk Sport doing a lot of work with Sky Sports in the build up to the fight. But obviously, we'll talk about what went down at the AO Arena. I'm just going to say it straight. He battered him. He absolutely battered him, and it was hard to watch.
Yeah.
You know,
it was definitely. It was uncomfortable.
I was sat with Aki Karim, and Aki Karim is one of the founders of British Boxing TV. And he goes, I think it was 11 years ago, I stood in the same arena and I watched him box Kotelnik, and Kotelnik did not lay a glove of him. That's the night Amir Khan become world champion. And 10 years later, watching that fold in front of us, it was tough to watch. And you have to just be honest and say Kel Brook absolutely battered him. He battered him from the start of the fight to the finish. And you've got to give Kel Brook credit. And I hate to say it, but I saw that coming because Amir Khan had not fought in 3 years. Kel Brook, for me, has always been bigger than him. He's always been a more powerful puncher. And I'm just surprised it went on that long. Ron, Asif, your thoughts on what went down in the fight itself?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It was far too strong. Amir Khan was taking far too many punches, and he mauled him. It wasn't a battering. It was a mauling more than anything. Amir Khan's hand speed, we didn't see it at all. You know, that's, Father Time kind of telling him that, that's one of the first things to go when you age is your speed, and power kind of tends to remain. We saw flashes of it from here and there, in the early rounds where he did let a few flurries go. But other than that, it was just Kel Brook just timing those shots, kind of timing, and this is what everyone was saying, the professionals, about the predictions, that timing beats speed every time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, when you age, you always hope and hang on to that, that puncher's chance, because the power is one of the last things to go. And Amir Khan's never been blessed with power. He's been blessed with speed, electrifying speed. And yeah, like Ron said, he looked quick in the first probably round, because I'm guessing, the opponent wasn't, matching in speed, and it wasn't even anywhere close to him. But Kel Brook just stuck to what Kel Brook does best. He took the center of the ring straight away, and he just absorbed what Khan threw. He absorbed the barrages, the combinations, and then at will, when the opportunity was there, he unleashed. And every time he did, I think the first time he kind of rocked him was pretty much a jab, and I thought, he's caught him off balance here, but his legs went straight away, and you thought, okay, right, this ain't a good sign. And then Khan just reverted back to Khan. He's got heart of a champion, heart of a lion. That's why he's so exciting. That's why I think the fans love him. And he got into that war, and there was only going to be one winner with that, and it was really upsetting. I found it quite upsetting to watch, because we've all grown up watching Amir Khan, and we didn't want him to go out that way.
I mean, Faisal, you mentioned about when you interviewed Carl Froch, and he said about Khan being like Bambi on ice. it literally was that any time he got a touch, you see his legs doing that little dance that he does, which he's done in his previous knockouts in his career. I mean, in that fight, prior to that fight, Khan's been on the canvas 12 times.
He's always engaged in wars in his fights, which I've obviously in the peak stages of his career I found very unnecessary, because whatever you think of Amir Khan, I've always thought technically he's actually a very good boxer. He's never been a power puncher in my opinion, but technically he's very good. I mean, if you look at his fight against Canelo and Danny Garcia, prior to those knockouts or those knockdowns, he's actually winning both of those fights. But having said that, you can't take away anything from Kel Brook. I mean, everybody thought the weight would be an issue for Kel Brook rather than Amir Khan. Kel Brook got more close to the weight than Amir Khan did, and I've always said it. Kel Brook under Dominic Ingle is a very good fighter. Anyone else doesn't get the best out of Kel Brook, and I thought they got the game plan right. And I don't know why the Sky Sports the panel was surprised with his performance, because I said at the start of the week that Kel Brook, if he's going to win, he's going to win that way. He's going to be more powerful than Amir Khan. He'll take it to the center of the ring, and he's just going to outmuscle him, and that's exactly what he did. And I say it many, many times, ring inactivity plays this part, and Amir Khan, for me, I don't want to sound like I'm slating him or anything, but in my opinion, he sort of like banked on the defeats to Golovkin and Spencer and thought, yeah, I've got him towards the end of his career. It'd be an easy walkthrough. Amir Khan, in my opinion, should have taken that fight. Even after the Canelo fight was a decent time to take that fight. But this is what I say about ring inactivity. Brook fought the back end of 2020. I believe it was in December against Crawford. And Amir Khan's last fight was against Billy Dibb in 2019, who was 3 weights below him. But nonetheless, you have to talk about what's next. There's a lot of rumors going around about Kel Brook. Perhaps a Conor Ben.
Before we do that, Pastor, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there. I was watching that when the fight did get stopped in the 6th round. My opinion was that the fight got stopped prematurely, because if you look at the end, how many did Kel Brook actually land on Amir Khan? I mean, I totally agree with the both of you. He was being mauled in that fight, and looking at the Amir Khan response and his post-fight interview, didn't you feel that way, that it was stopped a little bit too early?
No. I think I think we can all agree.
Watch it again, and you'll see how many of those punches actually landed.
I don't think it was stopped because of that one, incident there at the end. I think it was just a combination of everything that he'd taken them 6 rounds, and I think we can all agree Amir Khan was never going to quit. He was never going to quit. He was going to go out on his back if he hadn't been stopped. And I do feel like when he was stopped, he didn't really appeal or anything. It seemed like he was quite relieved. And then when you saw his face after the fight, it was like, wow, he marked up really badly. And it wasn't nice to watch.
I attended the press conference after the fight. The guy had blood coming out of his ears. From obviously what you guys saw on TV to what I saw live. His face was marked up like nothing. It was bad. I saw it live. He took a lot of punishment, and it just wasn't a 1 or 2 rounds of punishment. It was literally from the first bell of the fight to the very last second of that fight. And in my opinion, that fight should have been stopped in round 4, not around 6, because I mean, if you look at Bomac's interviews, he said he was actually thinking
to stop him earlier.
And look, I go back to my point. It took the fight way too late. He banked on the defeats to Golovkin, and to Spence, and to Crawford. If he'd have taken that fight 2014, 15, 16, I reckon he would have beaten Brook. But he didn't, and Kel Brook comes out on top. I think we all know what's next for Amir Khan. 2-time world champion, Olympic silver medalist, has blessed us with some great nights in boxing. Is there any chance that he continues, or do you think that's him done with boxing now?
I think you might see him. He's got a strong connection in Dubai, hasn't he? So you might see him fight maybe another Billy Dibb or that. But in my opinion, I hope he does retire, because what people don't understand is what he's done for the sport. We all see the lavish lifestyle at times, but you see the fighters on the undercards, and you see their stories, and you see how much they dedicated to Amir Khan, how he's opened doors for them, and he's done so much for British Asians in this country in terms of pull put in the hard work, we can be the next Amir Khan. We haven't got that anywhere else. If you look across any of the other sports in this country, he's the one and only. And I hope he does retire because, I don't want to see him take, another fight for a payday because he doesn't need the money. You can see his lifestyle. He's already said it. But yeah, like I said, man, it got to me, that fight did. Do you know what else got to me? The end after the fight, I think he had a couple of seconds with his dad and you can see the pain on his face. He looked really upset. And then after that, everyone's grabbing him for pictures and, he's just, you could see he was hurting. This fight really, really hurt. And everyone's grabbing him. Yeah, take a picture of me. Even in the back, I think, what's that guy's name? The one that, Venetian? No,
David Avanesian.
They grabbed him and was talking to him and taking pictures, and I didn't feel comfortable with it all because you could see he was hurting. But he's that he's that much of a sportsman. How many people do you know after a loss like that would go into the press conference and the way he did, he was all busted up and he gave credit where it was due. So yeah,
he's definitely a credit to not just British Pakistanis, but also British boxing. I don't think he's been given the recognition that he deserves. I mean, if you look at the fights that he's lost, all right, Bradus Prescott was a freak, and then obviously he gets robbed against Lamont Peterson because it was in Peterson's backyard, and then we all found out that Peterson had been jabbing himself up weeks before the fight. But if you look at who he's lost to, Crawford, Canelo, Garcia, and Brook. Three of those guys two of those guys are probably the greatest fighters of our generation. And then the other two fighters have had very good careers, so there's nothing to be ashamed of. And if you look at the fighters he's beaten, Zab Judah, who goes down as a phenomenal fighter, Kotelnik, Malignaggi, the guys fought all over the world. And as I said,
Devin Alexander,
yeah. That was a good performance, that was.
Marco Antonio Barrero. Yeah. The guy has definitely opened up many doors for young fighters in the sport. And if you look now, you've got Hamza Shiraz, Shabazz Masood, the Azim brothers that fought on the undercard, Abdul Khan. When was the last time we actually watched a full card of boxing where we saw more than one British Pakistani on that card? I think he had 5 British Pakistanis fighting that card. So Amir Khan deserves a lot of credit. He takes away a lot from the sport. I don't want to see him fight again. Might he fight a YouTuber? Might he fight someone else like Billy did? You never know. If you're getting offered the right money, then he probably will. But as for fighting at this level, I personally think he was done after Crawford. Talks about Kel Brook. 2 fights are being mentioned, Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. A lot of people that I interviewed after the fight, i.e. Carl Froch, said he should retire, he should go out on a high. I actually agree with him because for some reason, Kel Brook reminds you of George Groves. He beats Chris Eubank Jr., then he just takes an absolute beating against Callum Smith. And I think if he was to fight a Chris Eubank Jr., I think Chris Eubank Jr. would do exactly the same. What do you guys think is next for Kel Brook? Do you think he should also
I think retire. I totally agree with Carl Froch. He's done his grudge match. He's won that, and just go off into the sunset. He's got nothing else to prove. Let's be honest, he's no world title contender, especially in that welterweight division. Or does he want to go up to middleweight? What has he got left to prove? He's given us an excellent career. Only 3 defeats on his record. And those 3 defeats, you're talking about Amir Khan's defeats, they're all against world-level opposition there. Crawford, who we got Errol Spence and Triple G. So I'd take that, and, he will go down remembered fondly to, he's given us some really good nights of boxing. So, I mean, when he won the world title against Sean Porter, what a performance that was in America as well. So he's lived that American dream. I'm sure, on the back of this fight against Amir Khan, he's made his fair share of money. I don't want to see him back in, but these young guns, they've got a lot more to gain out of this than he has. The Conor Benn, he's just chomping at the bit, of trying to get in there with, Khan or.
Which is what you rightfully do, though, if you're Conor Benn. You want to fight.
Absolutely. I'm not going to fault him. He's going to eat. He's going to make his money. He's going to make his status, and he needs names on his resume because he's trying to climb that, the ranks of the boxing ranks. Eubank, I'll let Asif take that one for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I think the Eubank fight makes more sense, right? Chris Eubank Jr. is with Sky Sports. He's with Boxer. I think it makes more sense. And I know you say about he's Kel Brook and maybe retire, but you look at the fight of Amir Khan, right? He didn't take much punishment. Okay, he's come out and said, "Oh, it's the best he's felt." You can hear all the talks already about him saying, "Oh, the love for the games, sports back. I had a really good camp and Dominic Ingle relationship." I don't think he retires. Money talks, and that would be a big domestic fight. Will it be a box office fight? Probably not, in my opinion. But it'll still be a big fight, and I don't think he'll retire. I think the money will keep him in at least for one more fight.
Do you know what I have to say about Kel Brook is this guy? I still don't know how he makes 147 pounds or 148. I don't know how this guy's not keeled over with trying to make weight. I mean, if you look at some of Eddie Hearn's interviews in the past when he talks about Kel Brook, the one thing he seems to mention is how he kills himself to make weight. Like, at what point in your career do you think to yourself, stop going for 100, going to try and get 147 pound? Like, he's even said on Twitter when he was having a bit of back and forth with Eubank Jr. the other night, he goes, "The fight with yourself will happen, but it has to happen at 155 pounds." Like, why would you want to fight Chris Eubank Jr. at 155 pounds? Go up to 160. Like, in my opinion, I think he feels a lot more comfortable the higher he goes up. But you say Asif says about he didn't take much punishment, but let's say it as it is. He was in there with a guy that was finished years ago. Like, you imagine if Brook had fought Eubank the other night. I reckon Eubank would have blasted him out there. And I honestly think Conor Benn will do the same because Eubank's absorbed a lot of punishment. Brook's absorbed a lot of punishment over the last few years because he's lost to elite fighters. And if you look at what Golovkin done to him and what Spencer's done to him and then what Crawford did to him with a jab, these are hungry fighters. And Eubank Jr.'s got his hunger back. I'll give him that. And I personally think Brook, everybody said it. Amir Khan's better than you. Amir Khan's always going to be the bigger name than you. You've gone and got that win on your CV that you need more than ever. You call it a day. Let these young guns have their go. Eubank Jr., how long are you going to look to stay at British domestic level for? Forget Brook, even forget the Conor Benn fight for now. Start looking at the likes of the Golovkins, the Charlos, the Andrades, the Maratas. These are the fights you need to be at. I mean, Eubank's only 2-3 years younger than Brook. Why would you want to constantly stay at British level? It just doesn't make any sense. But listen, we can rant and rave about it all we want, but the bottom line is I'm glad we got to see the fight. I'm glad that saga's over. Best of luck to Amir Khan in what he does next, and also best of luck to Kel Brook. Just quickly read out one or two comments. Boxing lover, Khan surely has to retire. Outboxed and outgunned in all departments. A sad ending to I think he's missed out something, I would say, a great career. Imran Ali, Islam Brothers, this channel will be a household name, inshallah. Love the passion and love the content. Thank you very much for your support, Imran. Let's move on because we've got a couple of more topics to talk about. Time is running out for Dillian Whyte. Who next for Tyson Fury? I say that because Dillian Whyte has to sign this contract by, I believe it's US midnight time. So I'm baffled as to why Dillian Whyte hasn't signed this contract. It could just be Dillian Whyte signing at the last minute, but I personally think he won't sign this contract. I don't think we get that fight. Asif, start off with you. What's going on with the whole Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury saga?
Your guess is as good as mine, my friend. Listen, this guy has been, begging and protesting and everything just to get this title shot. He's finally got it. It's there. And I don't know. I think maybe it's possibly mind games, trying to gain whatever little advantage he can over Tyson Fury. The fight will happen. I don't think he's happy with, obviously, the cut of the fight, the 80-20 and what he's getting. But it's a career high payday for him. But I do think it's mind games. I think he will get signed. I think he's trying to gain whatever little advantage he can.
Contract runs out tonight, as if he has to get signed by tonight. And I think it's a 5-hour difference from here to the east coast of America. So it's not a lot of time left.
Well, if he doesn't, then he can't complain again about not getting a title shot because he's been given one now, regardless of the split or anything. He's got one. He's got one against probably the best heavyweight fighters of our time. It'd be in the UK. It's career high payday. So if he doesn't take it, then I think he loses a lot of credibility. For me, he would definitely lose a lot of credibility.
Do you think $8 million is a fair amount of money to receive for a fight against Tyson Fury, given the fact that he's been the number one mandatory for more than 2 years now? As if
Tyson Fury's is the A side, so obviously he's going to get the bigger of the pot. Maybe not, possibly not. Seeing how much Tyson Fury's taken away with it, but this is he's got to put it into perspective. He's getting what he wants, which is a championship shot. And if he lets this slide, I don't think the belts are going to be tied up for a long time after this. With the Usyk and the Furies, so he has to take it, in my opinion.
Ron, what do you think is going on behind the scenes? Do you think this is potentially mind games from the body snatcher? Or do you think that it's just a case of 8 million is not a fair amount, and I'm just going to have to probably hold out till a world title shot comes my way at some other point?
Well, he's not made any. There's no secret about it. He's clearly not happy with the amount being offered. We've not heard him respond. We've not heard him any activity on social media in regards to the fight. Come on. You've been crying out for this. You've been beating top level opponents. You've got a really good boxing CV. Now this is your moment. Win this. Actually go into that ring, put on a great performance. Who knows? You could, there's a chance he might win. That's a Dillian Whyte kind of style, isn't it? Come forward, put your heart and soul into that boxing ring, and leave nothing, no stone unturned, and give it a good shot. If you win, there's more money on offer for you. Think about the rematch, how much that could be potentially worth. But, Asif said, he doesn't take this. Where does he go from there? Which fight does he turn to? He can't complain, oh, I've never had my shot. Well, you did, mate, and you just didn't take up that offer. Not the greatest offer. I mean, let's wait and see if Tyson Fury's team up that offer of 10 million or whatever his number is.
If you guys, obviously, we all interact on social media. If you have a look at Tyson Fury's posts, he's literally been ripping into this geezer, every chance he gets. And I can't believe that Dillian Whyte, because that he hasn't bitten back at all. I mean, these guys used to rinse into each other on a daily basis on social media. Now that he's been given a chance to fight for a world title, and he's getting a fortune to fight Tyson Fury, his biggest payday. He's not big. I mean, he's not said anything. It's like he's gone into hiding, and I'm actually shocked that we've not heard anything from his side. I mean, this is the fight he's been chasing for many years. And listen, Tyson Fury, in my opinion, is probably the best heavyweight in our generation, without a fact. But any heavyweight in this division right now, from number 1 to number 10, has got a punching chance of winning a world title. And Tyson Fury is vulnerable at times. We've seen it when he fought Deontay Wilder, and Dillian Whyte's a big puncher as well. So it's not like Dillian Whyte doesn't have a chance, but I'm just baffled that these contract talks are still ongoing, and that we've heard nothing from Dillian Whyte. And if he was to let this opportunity slip through his fingers, in 6 months' time or a year's time, when he has his next fight and he's still coming out, I'm getting hard done by. Well, you had your opportunity, right in front of you, and you got offered a fortune as well. So, I mean, I don't know what's going on. But what do you think happens? And if the fight with Dillian Whyte doesn't happen, Usyk and Joshua are going to be tied up with their rematch. Who's the next in line to fight Tyson Fury? Guys, give me a name.
I'm struggling here.
My personal choice, yes, would be Joe Joyce. Has to be Joe Joyce.
I agree. I like that name.
I mean, you've got Parker, but Parker, I don't think Fury would fight Parker because they've got quite
the stablemates.
The stablemates, and then Wilder, he's been there, done that, beaten him, 2 times, two stroke 3 times. I can't think of anyone else.
I think he walked through Andy Ruiz.
Oh yeah.
I think he walked through Michael Hunter, Felipe Hergovich, Dubois. It'd be a massive jump. It could potentially destroy his career if he took the fight with Fury and lost. I think there's only one name. I think it's Joe Joyce. It has to be Joe Joyce.
I think it's just mind games, man. I think he's look. He's not happy with the split, so he's not going to be promoting this fight out of his skin. He's clearly not happy. When's it penciled in for? April the 23rd.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing. I'm guessing he's trying to give Tyson Fury as little time as possible to prepare for Dillian Whyte. The fight will definitely get signed, and then the fun will begin, because the press conferences for this fight are going
It's
to
going to be brilliant. Yeah, agreed.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm hoping John Fury's at the table as well on these press and your mate Dillian Whyte's brother. I'm hoping they're because that will be one entertaining press conference. But yeah, like you said, where does Tyson Fury go from there? There isn't no one else other than them four. Usyk, Joshua, White, and Fury. There's such a massive gap between the rest of them. It doesn't. No other fight sounds appealing than Fury and White at this stage.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Just like I like the Joe Joyce fight, but anything else, and even the Joe Joyce fight is a hard fight to get up for. But I agree with Asif. The build up is what really you look forward to the most. The fight would be good, but you imagine on one side you got Dean Whyte and Dillian Whyte, and then on the other side you got John Fury and Tyson Fury, and you got the likes of Shane Fury in the background. It's not going to be a civil press conference. I thought the press conference I saw last week was bad. This one would be ridiculous. And you saw what John Fury is capable of when he participated in a Tommy Fury Jake Paul press conference with his comments regarding Jake Paul's girlfriend and whatnot. It'd be a good build up, and I'm hoping I wake up to some good news. And if not, well, sympathy goes out the window for Dillian Whyte. Ron, does it happen in your opinion?
Yes. That's a simple answer. For everything that Asif and you both said, Dillian Whyte would be foolish not to. And this opportunity won't come around again. Boxing doesn't have a short-term memory. They'll remember that. We gave you the opportunity, and you didn't take it. So, because I don't see where you've mentioned about Tyson Fury, where he goes. Where does Dillian Whyte go from there? And let's be honest, he's not going to make that much money on any other fight.
He'll still get fights, regardless.
Yeah, he will, but he's not going to get that money, that $8 million figure that they're going to do. The only fight that will make him money is against AJ. But like you said, AJ's tied up with Usyk, so this is his only fight, worthwhile fight to take.
Well, let's see. Let's wait and see what happens. Move on now because we've got 2 world title fights to talk about this weekend. One of them being what goes down in Scotland. Fingers crossed I do make it to Scotland because I'm still knackered from my trip to Manchester. Josh Taylor defends his undisputed super lightweight crown against Jack Catterall. I just watched the gloves are off, and do you know what? Right, you got to give credit to Sky Sports because they've had Williams Eubank, then you've had Khan versus Brook, and this one Taylor versus Catterall. And this is sort of like the third least choice out of the 3 weekends that Sky Sports have given to us. But I've watched the gloves are off, and I've got to say I'm actually excited for this one because Josh Taylor, for me, is looking to take this guy's head off, and I'm actually really starting to warm to Josh Taylor. But a lot when I'm speaking to a lot of people about this fight last week during Manchester, a lot of people aren't giving Jack Catterall any credit. Jack Catterall is actually a very, very good fighter, and a lot of people are sleeping on him. I expect Josh Taylor to win this fight. Don't get me wrong, but Jack Catterall's going to give him a good test, and it's going to be a good fight. But it is in Josh Taylor's backyard. A lot of people are saying that this is Josh Taylor's last fight before making that step up to 147 pounds. But in terms of this fight, Asif, how important is it that he gets the job done? He looks good in his backyard, and then he starts looking at the Crawfords, the Spencers, the Ugases.
Yeah, I think he needs to make a statement. It's the perfect opponent for him. Jack Catterall's he's a good fighter. Is he a world level fighter? I don't think so. He's undefeated. You look at his record. What's his biggest victory? Probably against O'Hara Davis. But yeah, I watched the gloves off as well, and he's given him no chance whatsoever. He needs to make a statement to get the attention of the names you've mentioned. Otherwise, other than us in the UK and that, does Josh Taylor have a big profile outside of UK? I don't think he does, especially if he wants those big fights, because you look at Spence, you look at Crawford, there's talks of them fighting each other. I can't see that fight happening, the Josh Taylor fight happening anytime soon, unless he makes a massive statement and goes out there and puts a performance on that, people stand up and start to take notice.
Can I just say, Ron, before you give your opinion on this, as you mentioned about Josh Taylor being known outside of the UK, he won the undisputed crown on US soil, right? But he's now currently promoted by Top Rank. His last world title defense was on a Frank Warren show, right? This is one fighter that I cannot believe someone like Eddie Hearn or has not jumped onto. I mean, this guy's an undisputed world champion. So I agree with Asif. Like, is he well known outside of the UK? I don't think he is.
I think there's a reason why he wasn't signed up for so long. You know, if you're an undisputed world champion, and I think he wasn't signed up to anyone. I think that goes to show the profile of him. I think his profile needs a lot of building, and hopefully this fight and being on Sky Sports gives him the opportunity to do that. Because, like you said, he's a tremendous fighter. He's a really good operator. I like the way he goes about his business. He talks well. He believes in himself. He's got Scotland behind him. So he's got the platform with Sky now to go and make some big noise.
Ron, Josh Taylor, everybody expects him to win on Saturday night. Let's say he does get the job done, which everybody is backing him to do. Can he really hang with those boys at 147 pounds? And when I say those boys, I'm not just talking about the world champions. I'm talking about, you know, the Virgil Ortizes, you know, the Boots Ennises, you know, the young Conor Benns. I mean, how far does he go at 147 pounds?
Well, I think he needs to take up before he even jumps with one of the big boys in the 147 division, and we know that's the one of the most exciting divisions in boxing. It gets all the attention. I mean, that's the reason for him to step up. I totally take on Asif's point that how well is he known out there? And, you know, with me and you, Faisal, we've discussed this many times that these lighter weights don't get the recognition.
Yeah,
but they don't. They don't. But then you look at the division below that. There's so much crying out for that division. You know, you've got Kambosos, Lomachenko,
of course,
Lopez, Devin Haney. Yeah. If they're getting that recognition, why aren't fighters like Josh Taylor getting this recognition?
That's a very good question.
The guy is an undisputed world champion. When was the last
time
an undisputed world champion from the UK? Lennox Lewis. Do you know what I mean?
No. You've got to give credit where it's due, and I think he's a very skillful fighter, Josh Taylor. I mean, I remember when he first came to my attention when he beat O'Hara Davis. I think that was that's when I started taking really note of him, and since then he's kind of flourished in his career. You know, he's got the wins, and like you said, he's going over to the US and won the world title there. Your question was, how will he do in 147? I think, you know, stepping up in weight is never an easy thing. You know, you're going to get naturally bigger fighters. I wouldn't put him in with one of the big boys straight away. I would kind of give him a little warm-up fight. Someone well-known who's going to give him rounds, could put pressure on him, and then go from there, really. So you see what I mean? He's relatively young for a boxer. So, because those boys, I think, Terence Crawford, Virgil Ortiz, they'll take it. I think they'll win those fights.
Do you know what? I honestly think that he won't want to hang around. What he won't want to wait around. Like, you say a warm-up fight.
Something just to kind of get him used to fighting at that weight, just knowing what it feels like to be in a ring.
Because obviously half of this show is promoted by Top Rank, right? And we all know Crawford in the past has worked with Top Rank, and we all know now he's looking to take Bob Arum to the cleaners because of disputes that have happened between their contracts. I honestly think he wins on Saturday night, and I think his next fight is against Crawford. Because Crawford is not getting a UGAS or a Spence anytime soon. Those two are going to fight each other, and that's exactly what I can see happening. Just so Crawford could get one over on Top Rank, he'll take the Josh Taylor fight after Saturday. That's obviously depending on if he beats Jack Catterall.
Do you think that's the right fight for
Spence?
Who else is there for?
The flip side is what does Crawford gain from that? You know, he's fighting a fighter that's
coming up in weight.
Yeah. I don't think he gains anything. You know, Crawford said, doesn't he wants to fight in the UK. So
that's exactly what I was just about to say. If you look at the reception he got during fight week for Khan versus Brook, he's definitely got a huge. I honestly think his appeal is bigger here than it is in the US. And he put out a post on his Instagram today that he goes, his one of his missions this year or in the next 18 months is to look to fight in the UK. So, do you think that's a possibility? Josh Taylor versus Terence Crawford, perhaps in the next year or the next 18 months?
Like you said, I mean, the Spence is tied up. When's that fight? Sorry.
I think it's in April.
Okay, so I mean he's tied up for the next 6 months or so, and yeah, is it a possibility? Yeah, I mean, like I said, Josh Taylor's got a platform behind him now. It's something that he didn't really have before. He's got Sky behind him, and Sky are looking to make big moves, and they've probably seen the response that Crawford's got in the UK. And like I said, one thing that Josh Taylor has behind him is a country, and the Scottish fans, they follow their, their fighters, their players, whatever it is. They're very passionate fans. So I could see it happening. Yeah, why not? But again, there's more to gain for Taylor than there is for Crawford, in my opinion.
Let's also remember Scotland have got the best Scottish footballer in the world in Andy Robertson. Then it's Kieran Tierney, and then it's Scott Brown. I think Scott McTominay is probably, I don't know, bottom 15 or something. Anyway, let's move on, and let's not make this. Let's, as Nigel Benn once said to Chris Eubank Senior, let's have some parliamentary procedure here. Boxing on a Sunday night, the same night Liverpool are going to win the first domestic trophy of the season. Fingers crossed. Lawrence Okolie defends his WBO Cruiserweight Title of the world against Michal Cieslak. Lads, first, before we talk about the fight, boxing on a Sunday night appeal to you guys or not?
I think it's to accommodate the two major events. We've got the one on Saturday.
You're going to it, and you're sitting in a box seat, you wanker, so of course you'd say that.
Yeah, I know. It's not ideal. I mean, because I love my Sundays to reflect on what happened, where it went wrong for whichever fight I was supporting or not. Well, let's see how this turns out. We've been spoilt for choice with the boxing recently, and this, I think this fight's kind of been missed out. I mean, and Lawrence Okolie, nobody's really talking about this one or not speaking up about it. But from what I've seen it's a good undercard as well.
Yeah, you got Anthony Fowler on it. You got Ricky Hatton, Fabio Wardley. Got the Australian heavyweight Dempsey McKean. It's actually a decent undercard. As if Lawrence Okolie, what have you made of his sort of, how he's gone on in his career at the moment in terms of whilst he's been under Barry McGuigan's son Shane? What have you made of his progress?
Listen, he's a fighter that doesn't excite me. I'll be totally honest, because that division, unless you're at the top, you're in the top 2 or 3, there's not really that many interesting fights there. So this is going to be another taking over fight. Again, boxing on a Sunday, I don't understand it. There hasn't been that much drive for this fight. I haven't seen that much promotion for that fight. Again, it's another DAZN show. It's in the O2, isn't it? I swear the O2 got blown away or something, didn't it?
Well, let's see if the roof gets put back on before the fight. I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, but yeah, listen, I've always made my feelings clear, about Lawrence Okolie. He's a great fighter, but I think we're going to really find out how good he is when he really steps up. And I don't think he stepped up. Even when he won the world title, it's probably the most one-sided title fight you'll come across. So the fight doesn't excite me, if I'm being honest. I probably won't be tuning in to watch it because the DAZN doesn't do it for me at the moment. I'm probably more likely to tune in just to probably watch Campbell Hatton and see how he gets on. One of the Kafai brothers is fighting on that card as well.
Yes, Bilal Yafai, Olympic gold medalist.
So he's making his debut. So that would be good to watch. But the Lawrence Okolie fight, I'm sorry, man. Until he steps up and fights someone of quality, doesn't get me off my seat, I'm afraid. And especially on Sunday.
Just want to add to that. I think Lawrence Okolie hasn't been known to be an exciting fighter. I was really frustrated watching him fight. It was like, the constant hugging and, kind of mauling his kind of opponent. But in the last 2 or 3 fights under Shane, I've definitely seen improvements in him. He's letting his hands go, letting his combinations go, using that reach to good advantage. And let's look. He could be in the next 18 months' time. We've been talking about. He could be the next heavyweight contender. He might enter that division. That could be an interesting kind of move for him because if he cleans up at cruiserweight, what's left?
I think it's his last fight at cruiserweight. The reason I say that is because Marius Bradis has lost the plot. He's got Jake Paul on his mind. He's got his face tattooed on his leg. God knows where else he's looking to get Jake Paul's face tattooed next. and you got Ilunga Makabu, who's practically in bed with Canelo right now. Won't take any other fight. Just pray that Canelo doesn't fight anyone else apart from him, because one, he's gonna get completely destroyed by Canelo, and two, he's gonna make a huge payday. So I don't think his future's at cruiserweight after this fight. Would I want to see him fight a British domestic fighter like, I don't know, like a Riyad Kapoor? Probably not, because I do believe that these British domestic level fighters at cruiserweight ain't going to stick around at cruiserweight for long. They're just going to move up to heavyweight, and I do think Lawrence Okolie's next move is at heavyweight. Having said that, I do think he drops this guy in 2-3 rounds. And I agree with Asif. I'm not impressed with the zone. I'm not impressed with the commentary. I'm not impressed with the level of fights. Wood versus Conlin, I'm actually looking forward to. Don't get me wrong, some of the fights are good, but just the way the fights have panned out, I wasn't impressed with their last show as well. Jacobs versus Ryder was a robbery. It was a poor night of boxing. I'm going to have to really stick it on Eddie Hearn the next time I get him on an interview. One card I am looking forward to is the Taylor Serrano undercard, and it's not just because the main event is because you got Liam Smith versus Jesse Vargas, and that is going to be an absolute barnstorm. But I agree with Asif. Sky Sports for me are number one. Then you've got DAZN, and then you've got Queensbury. There's free. The one good thing about this year boxing is we've got 3 platforms now that are going to go head to head. And if you have a look who's doing it right now, it's definitely Sky Sports. And they were tipped to be at the bottom of the pile, so they've come on really, really well. But let's see, boxing on a Sunday night, it might work, it might not. Just a few comments we'll read out. This one is from Naveed Maroof. Do you guys believe that Amir Khan gets the respect he deserves? Asif, I'll let you answer that one.
No, I don't think he does. I think within the boxing world he does. I think I don't want to sound too dramatic, but I think within our own people, we always look forward to him failing. You'll see him get knocked out or knocked down. There'll be memes. You'll see him do something in his life. It'll be all over social media. But we don't really get. I know you're laughing because some of the things that he's done. Listen, they haven't been great, but.
I'm not laughing at Amir Khan, right? You mentioned about the memes, and someone's made a TikTok video when the gloves are off, when Johnny Nelson asks Kel Brook, who's the A side in this? And Kel Brook goes, he is. And then Amir Khan's response is, what? Say that again? But someone's made a meme of him going towards Kel Brook and be like, Qasam cha. Is it an Asian food? It is funny, some of the memes, but yeah, sorry, as you were saying, I actually find it hilarious when someone put that on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, there's more memes out there than there is of things he's done within the sport, and I'm similar age to him. I think I'm probably a little bit older than maybe a year older than him. So I've grown up when he came through the ranks. He done one in the Olympics, and he came through as a professional level. So he's been part of my life for quite a while, and I've loved watching him. He's the only fighter I've stayed up and watched every one of his fights when he campaigned in America. I mean, other than Ricky Hatton, you think of any other British fighters that have gone out there and done what he done in America?
Nazim Ahmed?
Really? I mean, he had maybe in America, two fights?
Three fights? Yeah. Nazim Ahmed lit up Vegas, man, with his entrances, with his.
What I'm talking about is.
Okay, I get it. He didn't finish off well, but.
Of our generation, right? Where we've been in, maybe because you're a bit older, Ron. Yeah, you can remember Nazim Ahmed.
Oh, here we go.
I don't, but like I said, man, I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves, and firstly, you've been to these events, you've seen the cards, you saw the card last time, how many British Asians there were on it, and when you watch their interviews and how much credit they give to Amir Khan and the work that he puts in with them, the work that he does in Bolton, the academy that he's got in Dubai, he does so much, and it is going to be a massive loss to the sport, but it's actually good to see him retire on his terms. Like he said, he doesn't want boxing to retire him. He wants to retire when he's ready. And yeah, man, I hope he enjoys his retirement. I hope he goes on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of It Again, because that was hilarious. Honestly, that was hilarious.
When he was locked in the tube with snakes, like, oh no, fucking hell, get me out of here, I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here.
I think the best part was when he goes, I haven't even seen the show. I don't even know what's going on, I haven't even seen the show. Or the Strawberry Gate. Strawberry
Gate, yeah. No, listen, I agree with Asif. He's done phenomenally well. For some of the things he's done outside of the ring, I slate him for, but inside the ring now, guy's got a ton of heart. He's a former world champion. Forget world. The guy sold out an arena as an amateur fighter. He got promoted by Frank Warren straight after the Olympics. Tell me which Olympic fighter amateur fighter that gets a promotional deal while still being an amateur. Doesn't really happen often, does it? A couple of more things, Ron. Pugnacious. I think I've pronounced. Thank God I'm not.
Pugnacious.
That's it.
Yeah, sorry. Pugnacious. I've seen some of these Q&As and the guys read out the YouTube names and it doesn't go well for some of these people, including the guys from Air TV. Amir gets a good amount of respect, but he never always carried himself respectfully. Pugnacious, and he's lost some fans in the process.
Touching on what...
It's as Dominic England said, what goes on Skype stays on Skype.
Touching on what Asif said.
He has had a lot of controversy outside of the ring, though. Let's not forget.
I mean, look, touching on what Asif said, like, you know, we've followed this kid since he was 17 years old. You know, was it 17 or 18 that he went to the Olympics?
17, yeah.
Yeah, and look what he achieved at that age. He had that sort of fame and glitz and glamour. You know, obviously Kel Brook was kind of a bit bitter about that. You know, just talking of changing sports slightly a little bit, you know, Wayne Rooney talked about in his recent documentary about his struggles with finding fame and from a very early age, and it's overwhelming. He gets to the head, and you know, we you know, Amir Khan, you know, he's human, and the thing is, when he makes a mistake, it's multiplied.
Isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is, and you know, like what happened on Skype stays on Skype. I mean, then it was his bitter kind of back and forth with his wife. That didn't help matters, and you know, it is sadly in our community that we sometimes want to see our own people fail, and which is sad, you know. And you know, we forget what he has achieved. He's a 2-time world champion, and he's given us whenever he's turned up to he's always turned up to a fight. You know, he gives us excitement, gives us drama. Think about, you know, the Maidana fight. That's one of his key fights that we absolutely enjoyed. Yes, you know, there's some bad with the good, but that's just life. That's just people. You know, you're not going to be 100% the best version of yourself all the time.
You just could not help yourself, innit? You couldn't go through one podcast without mentioning that ex-great club of yours. Like, honestly.
Oh, my dear.
Yeah, okay. Last one, I'm actually looking forward to mention this one. And I'm going to direct this one at Asif. Asif, Boxing Lover says, can Eubank Jr. beat Billy Joe Saunders in a rematch? Ron, just do me a favor, get your blanket, your pillow out, because we should be here for another 3 years. That's a fight I really want to see.
Oh, dear.
Honestly,
How long have we got? Come on, right? Chris Eubank Jr.
We've all got to work in the morning.
Well, look, you know, Billy Joe Saunders ain't doing himself any favors right now. He's not being active. He's got that L on his record now. Has he got the love for the sport? Whereas Chris Eubank Jr. has now got a platform behind him. Great performance in his last fight. You know, he's at that age now, 30. What is he? 32 now, 32, 33. Where, listen, he's at his peak. The work that he's doing with Roy Jones Jr. is, you know, it looks to be, you know, pain effect for him, because his last fight, he was patient. People say, oh, he was boring. He didn't really do much, but it goes to show the change that, you know, Roy Jones has made. And I think he would, honestly, he'd stop Billy Joe Saunders.
Absolutely.
That Canelo loss for Saunders is a
You might have humbled him, might have given him.
Yeah, listen, that loss was a huge loss. He lost a lot of credibility within his own people. Forget, you know, the boxing world, because, you know, the boxing people, the ones that know boxing, know how good Canelo is. But he took that loss, and, you know, we've not heard anything from him. We've seen him on social media a few times and do up to his normal, you know, rubbish. But Chris Eubank Jr. would stop him. 100%.
When you say his own people, that's why you like referring to the travellers community.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen some of the things he's done. I've seen it on social media and that. So he hasn't took the loss well at all. So yeah, Chris Eubank Jr. is active. He's training. He's still learning. He's got probably the all-time greatest fighter that has lived, training him, steering him. So I can only see one winner in that fight. Will it happen? I don't think it will. If it does happen, it'll be one of those Amir Khan and Kel Brook fights where it happens maybe towards the end of their career, when in 3 or 4 years' time.
From what I'm hearing, Billy Joe Saunders said he'll take £5 million to get him back in the ring. I think with the way Sky have gone about their business since going along with Ben Shalom and Boxer, I think £5 million is not bad. But given the fact that the guy's a former 2-weight world champion, he's just made his highest payday from fighting Canelo, and that is a fight that the fans would like to see again. They're both not at world level anymore. They're both a lot more older. They've both been in big fights. There's question marks surrounding Billy Joe Saunders. As Asif said, has that loss actually finished him from boxing? How does he react to that loss? I'd like to see Billy Joe Saunders fight again. I still think he could win a world title at 160 pounds, probably even at 168. Ron, before we end the podcast, I'll let you answer this one. And this is obviously from myself to you guys. Will we see Billy Joe Saunders again? And do you want to see him fight again?
I hope so. Whatever happened in that fight against Canelo, yes, it was a really bad eye injury.
Before I let you carry on, right? He lost to the greatest fighter in the world today. I don't think there's not. I know Asif said that the way he lost didn't go down well with some people, but is there any harm in losing to a fighter like Canelo right now? I don't think there is. No,
I mean Canelo is a machine. He's a pound for pound, GOAT if you want to call him. There's a lot of kind of positive kind of things you could, but I'd like to see, Billy Joe Saunders. It just depends if he's got the heart, if he's got that determination to kind of come back, train. I follow him on social media. He seems to, I don't see much of him training or kind of keeping fit, or it just seems to be him kind of enjoying life at the moment. So, as we saw with Amir Khan, it is only how long can you stay out of the ring and expect to come back and work wonders again. We know what Billy Joe Saunders is about. In terms of boxing IQ, skills, he's got it in abundance. Yeah. So he doesn't want to leave it out. He doesn't want to be out the ring for too long. That's what I'd say. Sorry, Asif, you're going to say something.
I was going to say, I think it was the manner in which he lost. I think it was, the build-up of, never quitting. And I think the reaction he had when Daniel Dubois lost to George. He lost a lot of respect, for that. Listen, in my opinion, there's no shame or there's no, you can't really say anything if you lose a fight to Canelo. But when you back yourself up that much, and when you get on people's back like Dubois when you took that loss, and then you do the same thing, then how does he come back from something like that?
Hypocritical, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Is he still with Frank Warren? Is he?
No,
he was with Eddie Hearn.
He's with Eddie Hearn.
Oh,
but, yeah.
Well, Frank Warren couldn't get him that fight that he wanted with Canelo, so
that's why he left.
Yeah.
You know what? If sorry, go on. That's what you can say.
I was gonna say he's another fighter, man. That so much skill in that, but the profile. Whenever you talk about Billy Joe, is always negative. You don't talk. You see the things that he does, and you don't. He's someone else, man. That he's been a two-time champion and that, but there's no cry or demand for him to come back into boxing. When's Billy Joe coming back, or who's he gonna fight? So he's not with anyone at the moment.
No. But if I was Billy Joe Saunders right now and I was serious about coming back into boxing, I'd follow his mate Tyson Fury, go work closely with Sugar Hill Stewart. Because I believe that would be the best thing for him. He's 1 minute he's with Dom Ingle, then he's back with old trainer Mark Tibbs, and then he's with Ben Davis. And I don't think that's helped his career as well. He's never really been stable. He's never really, been with a trainer that's going to get the best out of him. And you look at what Sugar Hill Stewart's done to Tyson Fury. I think if he was to go over to Billy Joe Saunders, I think it'd do well for him, but nonetheless, it's all ifs, buts, and maybes. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Asif, Ron, guys, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for appearing on today's podcast. To the viewers out there, if you can, please hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. And make sure you check us out on all the social media platforms. And if you want to listen to this podcast again in one of the audio platforms, links will be below in the description. I'm Faisal Khan, and thank you to listen to podcast 48 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast, which is proudly sponsored by Spartans Law.